Hello and welcome to another Fellowship of the Golden Age interview. And today we're doing something a little bit different. This is Ruth, by the way, and what we're going to be doing is a recap of the recent webinar. So anyway, and it was all Ruth's ideas. So hi, Ruth. Fabulous to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Yeah. So it just sort of, it was all Ruth's idea. Like, yeah, we talked about doing a regular interview, and I said, what about if I ask you some questions about the webinar, and then
here we are.
So, and I think it's a first. I don't think we've ever had this done before, like, put the whole webinar into a really condensed format. So I'm sure it'll flow really fine between the two of us, but it'd be great if we could get any feedback for, whether, what you liked or don't like or anything like that, so we can do this again in future webinars. So, yeah. So, Ruth, would you start off by just doing a recap of the first dictation?
Okay, so this was the webinar for America 2023, Coming into Unity with Saint Germain's Vision for America. The first dictation by Saint Germain. He began his assessment of the political situation in America by stating that it is dominated by superficial thinking, that people have become overcome by black and white thinking through social media, and that a mob mentality has been developed which threatens violence and is a beast in the collective consciousness that rose up on January 6, 2021. The mob mentality operates by scapegoating. It projects anger onto the victim, projecting out rather than looking within, blaming the system, the government, Congress, Biden, Democrats. The Constitution is sound. Democracy is about solving problems without violence. Democracy gives freedom, which means that it is vulnerable to abuse. The people must wake up to the power elite, which has manipulated the system behind the scenes. The power elite has used the approach of divide and conquer, which makes people blame each other. The epic mindset makes people think that it's important or would make a difference which party is in power. Violence has always operated under the surface in the U.S., manifesting as the Wild West mentality, mob rule creating chaos, wanting to destroy the system, and conspiracy theories.
Yeah. So I remember like my very first impressions of that first dictation, and I was like, wow, that's really hard hitting. And I think he pointed out, like, remember that very first thing when he said, what's the first word that comes to you regarding American politics? Unfortunately, I didn't hear the word politics, and I thought America, but I'm just curious, what was the word that came to you?
I thought polarization.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's pretty fair to say. And then he gave the word superficiality, and yeah, and also, like, you just got this feeling as he said it, that in the collective consciousness, there was this big defensive reaction of being like, oh, what about other nations? They're doing the same thing. Yeah, but I mean, it's this, and then I just think that point about, that defensive reaction, like, you're never going to move forward by looking outside yourself. You're only going to move forward by looking within at yourself, at your nation, whatever that might be.
Yeah, superficial. I mean, it's a much more damning word, you might even say, just being superficial rather than even any other word you could use. I mean, it's just very, I've always felt that, part of the problem was the educational system in the U.S., and I felt that has contributed to the superficial thinking. So it goes a long way to describe a lot of issues.
Yeah. Well, as a teacher, like, I think the education system's pretty similar everywhere, where it's just very surface level. It's not teaching how to, you know, connect with your emotions, how to interact socially with other children and so on. Like, you know, that's where we get things moving forwards. We start it when the kids are young. But
because you really work with with your teaching, you've worked with young people, correct?
yeah. I worked with all different ages actually, but mainly with like primary age kids, which is kindergarten to 12 years old. But yeah, I found like more play worked well. Play and also lots of interaction with children in the playgrounds when they're playing, like to help them to socially, how to resolve problems. They need to learn how to do that.
It
Yeah.
goes along with, I don't know if it was Master Moore, but talked about the the sandbox. You know, he uses that metaphor a lot about life as, that you can, by playing with life as if it was a sandbox, experimenting, and not getting too upset about how things happen because you can just start over. So,
yeah, exactly. All right. So I think, so we can get through all of these. We'll move on to the next one. So yeah, that first dictation, that was like real hard hitting, and I think the next one was still pretty hard hitting. So give us the summary, Ruth.
They all are. Okay, dictation 2 was Saint Germain again. Do you want to find Jesus or be right among men? The Declaration of Independence recognizes a higher power. A higher power has given rights to all human beings. These are rights that government cannot impinge upon. The fallen beings have created standards that all people should follow. When people follow them, they think they are right, and that those who don't follow them are wrong, which leads people into taking pleasure in proving others wrong. Christ's truth brings people into oneness. By allowing the elite to accumulate wealth at the expense of those who do the work, the government is overriding the rights of the people. To overcome the divisive political attitude, people need to speak out. It is women who are most likely to speak out, since they can tune into Sophia, the feminine wisdom, by pointing out that what we are doing is not working and we must find a better way.
Yeah, and that's where it's sort of introduced that this call for, women to start expressing ourselves and just saying basically, what's up with this old boys club? Like, let's, change it now, like, so it's more family oriented and that the government is working for the people again.
And that it's a more humanistic attitude. That the sort of the softness of women needs to be brought into the political situation.
Yeah, and we can see how not all men, but the men particularly in politics are so caught up in this black and white thinking, like they're just too busy defending themselves and not thinking thinking about what politics is really about. They're thinking about the tradition of politics rather than the progressiveness of moving forward. Like that key point, the question that really jumped out to me, does it really matter whether you're right or wrong? How attached are you to being right? And I think you can apply that in all areas of life.
And that it's the humanity, that certain people have rights, and obviously the rights of a lot of people are being trampled upon. Just with now, I don't think immigration came up, but that's certainly one of the big issues about humanity.
Yeah, it's
how you treat people.
I agree. How we can do that. Yeah. Okay. So I think let's move on, keep going with the third dictation.
The third dictation was Mother Mary, and it was a short dictation. Women can be forerunners for the shift away from polarization and divisiveness. There must be something you love more than being right, something you love more than making others wrong. For women, it is their children. Women want opportunities for their children. They do not want war or conflict.
Yeah, and I think I just got the sense with Mother Mary's dictation that it was really about, just the Divine Mother speaking the word down, into the matter realm. And I remember how we had to say, "Women of America, unite," and just keep repeating that, like
that 4 or 5 times, yeah.
Yeah. So I say, "Women of America, unite." Keep doing it. It's. I think I'd love to see shifts in the politics there. There's so many like little changes happening actually, like with women like Marianne Williamson and AOC, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Like, they're just thinking so differently to the male black and white thinking of politics. So I'd love to see that happening there. You haven't had a female president, have you?
No.
Tut tut. Okay, number 4.
Again, Saint Germain. Fallen beings have a greater knowledge than the average person. Do not fight the fallen beings. There is a hierarchy of ascended beings which form an upward spiral of energy, the river of life, which is pulling the earth up into the golden age. When we tune into it, it will pull us up, and we will pull others up. The fallen beings are trying to stop the coming of the golden age and the further development of democracy. They work by instilling fear into people, which creates polarization and feelings of powerlessness, which produces anger against a perceived enemy or feared calamity. This anger is centered in the emotional body, which makes people react without thinking and creates the mob mentality. The American ideal of rugged individuality, the every man for himself attitude, and the American dream of success based on hard work are lies developed by the power elite. People have been fooled into identifying with labels such as Republican and Democrat. People need to shift out of this consciousness by coming into oneness. Women will be the first to see this, since they realize that what is best for my children is best for all children. You can help people shift out of this emotional turmoil, the agitated, negative, fear-based state of mind, by asking them questions, which helps them shift out of their emotional bodies into their mental bodies, and therefore become more rational and develop more self-control.
The very first impressions I got with that particular dictation was that the fallen beings realize that this planet is like slipping out of their grasp. They know that it's moving forward, even though people on this planet probably don't see that yet. But that's why everything is escalating so much, be it in in wars or whatever, but also in American politics. But that's what they're doing, the old divide and conquer by getting people to identify with these labels. And I'm not sure if it was in that dictation or another one, but it was just, I think, Saint Germain brought through a lot more positivity with this one, saying like, we see it's moving, it's improving, everything's getting better. But rather than trying to change people's minds of whether they're Democratic or Republican or whatever, actually just ask the question of like, well, what do you think? Get people to think about, find out what their beliefs are, because they're going to discover that what they really think is actually contrary to just this rock hard attachment to, whichever party you're affiliated with.
Yeah, because if you start arguing with them, then you're tuning into their emotional bodies, and you have to be better than that, or you have to take a more positive spin. You have to somehow bring the conversation up, and you can do that by moving beyond the emotional body into the mental body. So he's giving us some, because he says don't fight the fallen beings. But then again, you have to make that distinction between being a fallen being and just being in the fallen consciousness. So, so again, it just shows.
Like the fallen consciousness either. I think it's all pretty much the same thing, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, but the point is you can't tune into it. You have to pull out of it.
Yeah. And in doing that, we can help others, you know, by stepping outside of it, we help others to step outside of it too. And that's the goal. And and then, you know, if you're getting out and speaking with people, like, you know, particularly with the women, like, you know, they might be sort of affiliated with something or other, but then, you know, what about your kids and your family? What do you want for them? And they'll start seeing the how it's sort of disparate, like the beliefs, and like, is this party actually even looking out to help my family, my children? Not really. Yeah. Okie dokie. Let's go for the fifth. Oh, I like this one. It was Archangel Raphael.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting that it's the fifth dictation, and then he's also the archangel of the fifth ray.
Yeah.
And, representing the fifth ray of truth. And Kim also mentioned this was the first time he'd taken a dictation from Archangel Raphael. Okay. Archangel Raphael, who represents the fifth ray of truth, asserts that the American political system must be devoted to truth and holding people in politics, the media, courts, and education accountable for their actions. Truth is a divine quality. Dedication to Christ's truth brings people into oneness. Atrocities are impossible when people are dedicated to truth. Democracy can be lost. We cannot allow politicians and people in the media to tell lies. Court cases are holding the media and politicians accountable, as seen in the current court cases against Donald Trump. People need to wake up to how the fallen beings created the 2008 financial crisis and then tricked the government into bailing them out. How did the power elite and the fallen beings avoid justice, avoid their karmic return? The people take on the karma of the fallen beings when they believe their lies. Make calls to the fifth ray to cut people free from the hypnotic mindset of the fallen beings by showing them how they are being manipulated.
Yep. And, you know, that the importance, you know, what just jumped out at me with this dictation is that, you know, that these people in power, in the media, in business, in politics, are not being held accountable. And I think, you know, we should call a spade here and say, like, you know, that one of their most well-known ones, Donald Trump, he's like this classic of he's wanting power, but without accountability, without being accountable for the things that he's done and said and incited in other people. Because I'm Australian, so, you know, I see it all from a distance and everything. But, you know, what's your experience on the inside, being in America and being you're in the South, aren't you?
Yes, yeah. Arkansas. I mean, of course, this dictation and the teachings in general have made me realize how much the courts and the media, that's their job, is to hold the politicians accountable. And so, you know, so it's just interesting to see that finally the courts are taking a stand, and that the media has not been doing its job. So, you know, again, it's a question of just sort of how bad do things have to get. And so the courts are now holding these people accountable.
And are people seeing that? Like, you know, is there a majority of people seeing that, or are you aware of that or not? Or
it's hard to say.
Okay.
Locally, in my local situation, I mean, we have, you know, in Arkansas, it's very conservative, and actually, the people are starting to challenge um, some of the ideas and the concepts that are being brought up here in Arkansas. So there is progress here. People are beginning to question the power elite.
Okay. So yeah, and if that's in a conservative area, and from what I know, like there is a history of like slavery there and everything, and so it's
Well,
moving
we have Sarah Huckabee Sanders as our governor, and she was the press, uh, you know, speaker for Trump. So she's a Trump supporter, and she has been introducing some very highly conservative ideas, such as restricting the Freedom of Information law and some abortion things and things about education. So, and people are beginning to respond. They're beginning to wake up and say, you know, this is getting to be a little too much. We don't really want all this stuff. So, which is a first in Arkansas. So
yeah.
things are changing.
Well, that's a great sign. It's good to hear. All right, so let it be known we said it here. All right, the sixth dictation.
Okay, it's Saint Germain again. People need to come together without needing an external enemy to rally behind. They need to see America as a community of equals that shares basic humanity and essential humanity. They must shift away from the mentality of the ends justify the means, which means people must turn away from violence as a way of determining political outcome. There are still people who think that physical and psychological violence and force is a good way of resolving conflicts and achieving democratic goals. It is more important to raise awareness than to achieve specific goals. After people have shifted their consciousness, certain technological advances will become available. Most importantly, advanced weapons systems that would make conventional weapons obsolete. This technology cannot be released, however, until a shift in consciousness has occurred where people would operate these weapons in a responsible way. A new understanding of gravity will bring forth a technological development which will allow cars to hover over the ground, thus making road systems and the electrical grid unnecessary. Improved communication systems will enable information to be available to everyone from anywhere. A mental technology will become available where there won't be a need for a device to communicate, but rather communication will be done mentally. This will require an enhanced mental attitude, so it won't be available to anyone who hasn't developed the mental capacity. We need to stay positive and not get involved in negative attitudes. The more people become discouraged, the more they see violence as a solution, which becomes a self-reinforcing negative spiral. There is a positive aspect to negativity, however. It allows things to go to such extremes that people get awakened when they see that things have gone too far. There is always the potential for a shift, no matter how bad things seem to be going. Things are never what they seem. There may be a hidden manipulation, but there is also a hidden opportunity and potential. Saint Germain's golden age is on schedule. Resolve your birth trauma and primal self, and Saint Germain will share a personal vision with you.
Yeah, well, that was so much in that teaching. So I think the first thing that I thought was really powerful was for people to start coming together, but into smaller communities to sort of make the change, like realizing that, just one by one, it's like you can only have so much impact. But if you're coming together in communities, like obviously in your local communities of where you're living, I suppose is one thing. I suppose parents' committees and schools and things like that. there's lots of ways for people to start coming together and demanding the changes that they want. And then talked about, like, the long-term vision of, everyone raising their consciousness, and then the for stopping war, and then that short-term idea of that crazy hovercraft vehicle, like anti-weapon one. I don't think we could have it just yet, though. I think now's a bit soon.
But it was mentioned in 3 different dictations, I think. The that idea of the hovering car, automobile.
Yeah, I want to talk about in Mother Mary's song, because she gave a good.
She goes into it more, yeah. But it was really brought up 3 times. That's why, I mean, it was really kind of interesting.
Yeah, and then also the technology for being able to communicate mentally. Like, I've always felt like, yeah, that's possible. Like, how I already get sort of like little telepathic sort of connections, but if there was some sort of a device that could enhance it, that would be awesome. Yeah, so did you have any other impressions from that particular dictation?
Well, just this whole idea of violence, because obviously we're right in the middle of this, Israeli, Palestine, Hamas thing going on. And so just his statement, people must turn away from violence as a way of determining political outcome. There are still people who think that physical and psychological violence and force is a good way of resolving conflicts and achieving democratic goals. So obviously we're not, we need a lot of shifts here in that department. So, it's not happening yet.
But it's all improving, like, compared to, let's say, all the different wars that have happened through time, and with each war, like, people, because of the family connections, people begin to sort of say, hey, my family's been killed, my children, my son, whatever, and it has more of a personal impact, whereas before it was very detached, like you weren't.
Yeah. So in this situation, you have people all over the world. Some are speaking out in favor of Israel, some are speaking out in favor of Palestine. And so there's much more of a balance, because usually in war, the media is so controlled, so that for the first time, the Palestinians are speaking out. So, and it's from a humanistic point of view. I mean, everybody just wants the bombs to stop dropping.
Yeah.
And so people, it is a new reaction from people, because people are from both sides are coming out and just saying, let's stop the violence.
So it's not in favor of really either
right.
country, either. It's just about, let's just stop it. And
even now they're saying, when the bombs stop, Israel cannot be in charge of Palestine, so or Gaza. So it's going to be interesting to see how it comes out. But it is an example, I think, of a question of, how bad can it get, and when will people just say, okay, it's too horrible, let's stop this. So maybe just kind of getting to that point.
Yeah, hopefully within the next 1-2 decades, I reckon it's feasible for there to be a real winding back in violence like what we've had. Yeah, we're heading in the right direction.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was the thing Saint Germain finished with, that real positivity of, like, everything's on track. We're on track with the Golden Age. And it's really important to remember that. Okay, number 7.
It's Jesus. Okay. Yeah. Jesus speaks on Sunday morning as many Christians are going to church, telling them that for many, the way they practice Christianity is opposite to the principles he taught, and that the fallen beings have manipulated his teachings. Jesus says that the second coming of Christ is not his physical return, but rather that 10,000 people will manifest Christhood, and millions more will take on a degree of Christhood. Jesus calls out the church for its suppression of women, which is based on the mindset of the superiority complex. People think they have a superior God and that they are the chosen people and that they are better than others. But Jesus reminds us of his saying, "He who would be greatest among you, let him be the servant of all." Donald Trump has played on people's need to be the greatest with his phrase, "Make America Great Again." People who have an inferiority complex fall for this lie told by the fallen beings. If you follow us, you will become superior. This is Psychology 101. Psychology needs to be taught in high school because psychology and spirituality are closely connected. The fallen beings need to feel superior because they believe people have to earn their way into heaven, while actually it is free when the state of innocence is attained. The Christ mind sees the oneness of all and seeks to raise up the all.
And it was just so powerful just talking about, this mindset that the fallen beings plant into people to create a division through making one group superior to another. I mean, you look at Nazism and the superiority created there that infected the German nation. And then, Hamas and all of that, the superiority, the Republicans being superior, or white people being superior to black people. Like it's played out constantly, and and Christians being superior to any other religion, or whatever religion being superior. It really doesn't matter. It's just breaking that down completely, like to let that go, this whole superiority complex, and see it for what it is.
And I mean, yeah, because it operates on like an international political level, but then it also operates personally on an individual level. So it's an issue that affects everybody on, each person on a different level, and people buying into it more or less.
Yeah.
It's an idea, I think, that takes over nations, or it takes over religions, it takes over neighborhoods.
Yeah. In Australia, we have more of an inferiority complex here. We're a bunch of convicts and people that nobody wants. So, but yeah, of course, superiority complex that works perfectly in all little mini subsets for sure. Well, I'm just seeing what I said. So. Yeah. And also, so my observation, I just sort of want to ask you about this. Like, my observation as someone from the outside looking at America, like I've seen that superiority complex that America is greater than other nations and everything. I even felt noticed that even in the Summit Lighthouse dispensation, there was so much about America in there, and how America's this going to be leading the golden age, and it used to sort of bug me a little bit. I sort of thought, well, we've got a whole world, it's not just, I mean, I see America as very, very progressive, but from the outside I do see this superiority complex of America. So what do you see from the inside?
I mean, now that you mention it, I mean, I certainly do see that the Summit Lighthouse did emphasize that a lot, about America being on the leading edge, and a lot of myth making about America. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't know if people really feel that. I mean, it is part of the national identity, I guess, and so I'm assuming that Trump is able to play on that that people are responding to that attitude with that "Make America Great Again." I don't know.
Yeah. And again, it's very superficial anyway. Like, whether people really believe it on the inside is another story. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, I've observed that from the outside, that there is sort of like this superiority complex that's sort of come with the American nation as a collective, not on individual levels, but yeah.
But a lot of America, I mean, just because it's so big, I mean, a lot of people don't even travel, and there's, Americans are kind of put down because they never learn any other languages, whereas, you meet some Europeans and they speak 5 languages or something, and Americans can, barely speak English, so, it's just, it's such a big country. It's not really that homogenous about all the different views that people have. I mean, I don't think a lot of people don't even think about it.
Yeah. So it's just the projection then, okay? Because I'm on the outside, I'll see the projection and everything, and that comes through the media pretty much. It doesn't come through individual people, but it comes through the media. It's projection of, America the Great.
Well, I mean, America does, sort of in world affairs, they take on this idea of, policing the world as if they have that kind of responsibility. And of course, they don't always do it in the best way. So that's part of it also.
Yep. Okay. Number 8. Let's go.
Okay. Dictation number 8 is Mother Mary. There are 2 major forces at play in the universe: the Christ mind and the Divine Mother, the expansive and contracting forces. These forces are symbiotic, complementary, and holistic. The Divine Mother helps people look at the material world and how it functions. This is the feminine wisdom that you can tune into to bring about improvements in healing, education, science, and technology. The new technology will be brought forward by new insights into the force of gravity and how there are 2 complementary forces involved, one pulling matter to the center of the earth and the other pulling matter in the opposite direction, which will enable the designing of cars that will be able to hover over the earth. People must abandon the mindset of lack, poverty, limited resources, and that you have to take things by force. People have to shift into the mindset that the universe is friendly and that it will give you the abundant life. This shift also involves having a social awareness, a realization of the basic humanity, but also a new attitude towards labor, that people deserve to be paid for their labor. This new awareness may lead to women being paid for the labor of giving birth, bringing up children, and caring for the elderly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's so important. There was a few things there, but yeah, about tuning into the Divine Mother, that the abundance that is already available to us, and we need to activate our feminine selves to tune into that abundance, what already is in the plant world, in just by looking at the world around us, better ways to educate children and ourselves too, just to tune into the possibilities. And what was that last one? Oh yeah, about paying, having fair recompense for the work that's done at home and everything, for people, for mothers, for giving birth. Like, that's, man, hard work.
And so what's interesting, what this dictation brings forth is this whole idea where they are talking about women bringing forth that women have to stand up for what they believe in and so on. And so this dictation really gives more depth into what that's all about, that it's even more than sort of just about being taking a humanistic approach, but that it's also these ideas of science and technology are even embedded in that feminine approach. And so by balancing the male and female forces, that new things can be brought forth, that there's a real benefit from stopping the persecution of women.
Yeah, and even how it all applies, like, to the science, the balancing of the forces, that we can create gravitational vehicles or whatever it might be. Like, it makes total sense, doesn't it? Like, because if gravity was just one way, the only force, then we'd be all crushed down into blobs on the earth. Like, there obviously has to be sort of an extending sort of a force as well, or something like a pull, or I don't know. But yeah, it makes sense, and that way you can create like a hover thing, and maybe that's how they made the pyramids and things. But yeah, like female scientists, or just, scientists using like that feminine mind to start sort of thinking outside the box, to have a look in an area that they haven't looked before, and there's a little key already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that part of even just the idea of not using force and bringing peace to the world, that balancing the male and female forces has a lot to do with that. Will do a lot to bring that forward.
Yep. Okay, I think time for us to complete
the final dictation, Gautama Buddha. The fallen beings are obsessed with space exploration because they believe that Earth will not survive, so they need to find someplace else to go. Seeing yourself living on a friendly universe solves all problems on Earth. Buddhism teaches that life is suffering, but that there is a way out of it, which is the raising of consciousness. People must commit to this path. The illusion of separation and duality causes suffering. People project out a mental image about how the world should work. Everyone projects out different mental images according to how they want things to work, trying to force others to bend to their will, which produces conflicts and wars. By generating the force to win the war, people lose their peace of mind. This force-based mindset must be transcended. People need to tune into the direction that the world is going in, the river of life, the upward spiral, and follow that, which will bring people into unity. The peace of the Buddha is not a still stand peace. Peace is surrender into the flow. Peace is a dynamic state of mind. Life is self-transcendence. Even the Creator transcends himself, or there would be no creation. You cannot pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Establish a figure-8 flow between the material realm and the ascended realm. Reach for something beyond your own mind.
Yeah. Look, for me, it was just a very simple sort of response I felt for that. It's just the positivity of Gautama, that, we are being propelled up, and I just had a sense of the positive impact that the conference had, like through what the masters brought into the material realm, and then there was a lot of invoking of light too. I noticed it was a lot more than usual, so generating a lot more change in that way through the spoken word.
Yeah, there were a lot more invocations given, I think, in this conference.
Yeah. So yeah, we're on our way up. That's all that really matters. The earth is being pulled up, and it comes back to, again, like, surrendering to the force that's already there, the river of life, which was the preceding conference theme. And it keeps coming to me, like, the sense of, like, that river is already forging onwards and upwards, and, we're just this tiny speck, and we're being lifted along with it, whether we like it or not. So it just becomes easier to just let go and go with that flow, because the energy is already doing what it needs to do. Like, there's only resistance that's going to stop that.
Yeah, so the problem is, of course, how to tune into that and how much you can tune into it. I mean, because I think it's also kind of by degrees also.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's just with each illusion I let go of, with each separate self, just becomes easier. Like, I don't really have to do anything. It's just I loosen up. Okay. All right. So I think time to bring a close to this recap. So I hope everyone has enjoyed the recap, and that it might help to sort of bring up some memory of and put the conference as a whole in people's minds. And again, we'd love any feedback anyone has regarding this. And thank you, Ruth, for your huge effort of putting all of this together.
And thank you, Neptune.
That's all right.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, so see you all later. Bye-bye.